This is Tully Blanchard, one of the original members of the Four Horsemen with Ric Flair and Arn and Ole Anderson. And you know what? With this world of high technology, you've got to go to the best. You've got to be the best. You've got to have the best equipment, just like the Four Horsemen always told you. InYourHeadOnline.com. That's the premier place to get your information about the wrestling business today, tomorrow, and even in the past. This is your place for the best, by the best, with the best.
All right, we're back. Welcome to In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I'm the internet icon, Handsome Jackie Jones, along with my right-hand man, 1-inch biceps, the power goat. How about that? Yeah. I don't know, the bow's kind of weak, but joining us right off the bat, the man who's not weak, I bet this guy could give us a great bow, is the Scrap Iron. Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. How you doing?
Boys, I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. How's the neck doing?
The neck has been an arduous process, to say the least. I mean, I heard it in February, and here we are in May, and I'm still waiting for doctors to clear me to get back to doing what I love to do. So from that standpoint, it's been really frustrating, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we hope it's better, eventually here, and you can get back in the ring.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's how I make my living, and this is outside of blowing my shoulder out in 1999. This has been the worst thing I've had to deal with, not just structurally to my neck, but I crushed a nerve bundle on my right side too, and that's actually been more problematic than the structure or the structure of the integrity of my neck. So. You don't want to mess with nerves if you don't have to, and unfortunately, I put myself in a position where I'm kind of at the peril of gravity and other people, and kind of landed me in an awkward position. But like I said, hopefully here in the next 2 or 3 months, I'll get doctor's clearance to come back and give it a go and see what happens from there.
Mm-hmm. Was it one particular injury, one particular bump, or was it just something that's built up over time?
I was in a tag match. It was myself and Austin Aries against Scorpio Sky and Joey Ryan, and I darted myself on a tornado DDT from Scorpio Sky, and I don't blame him at all. It was just one of those bad bumps. I mean, we've all taken bad bumps. It just so happens that this one happened to be a direct impact on top of my head, which compressed everything in my neck. And I had one doctor actually read the x-ray wrong and tell me it was broken, which nobody ever wants to hear that. But like I said, structurally now my neck is tons better than it was 2 months ago. Strong. I didn't lose any strength overall, but I've had numbness and tingling on my right side as a result of crushing that nerve bundle. And like I said, that's actually been more problematic and the real cause of me being out of work at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, we want to let everybody know that they can see you, and hopefully we'll see you in action August 4th through the 7th in Atlanta, Georgia, the NWA Legends Fan Fest. You can get all your ticket information at NWALegends.com. There's links all over our website, so if you can't spell that, which you'd be pretty sad, but you can just click the link and you'll go there. It's just like magic. Now, you were there last year. You're there many years. What's it like, when you're wrestling and at the Fan Fest, because there's, so many legends in attendance? Is that like a different atmosphere?
It's one of the atmospheres I look forward to every year, just from the standpoint, obviously, of having wrestled for 15 years, you love and you relish working in front of a crowd that's going to appreciate what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But from the standpoint of having all the legends that are there, the Harley Races and Terry Funks and Jim Cornette's and Jerry Briscoe's and the list goes on, just to have them there to kind of pick their brains and have them watch your matches. Last year at the Fan Fest, I wrestled Brian Danielson, and Terry Funk was doing commentary, so it was a real honor to be able to pick his brain after the match and kind of, get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And just the fans overall that come to the Fan Fest every year are true wrestling fans going back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They grew up on the same things that I grew up loving, watching as a kid. So it's real good from a performer standpoint to be in front of people that like I said, are going to appreciate what you're doing, and they're going to have a good time. And you can't ask for anything more than that.
It's a little different this year. The matches will be outside Atlanta, but they're going to have Greg's having buses there where He'll take everyone to it and back to the hotel. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, Greg Price is one of those promoters who does things the right way, and I'm fortunate to consider Greg a friend and to have worked with him in the past. And I'll definitely be there at the Fan Fest this year, and hopefully, God willing, in time I'll get some medical clearance to maybe roll around during that event as well. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Now, currently, the Sheik is a champion, but who do you think will be the champion, come Fan Fest on?
I have no idea. How would I know that? I'm not psychic. Right now, the NWA World Champion is the Sheik, who was able to steal the belt from Colt Cabana, who obviously defeated me a couple months ago out here in Hollywood. So who's to say? I believe, I know Colt Cabana's announced it being at Fan Fest. I don't know if they've announced that the Sheik's going to be there or not. I know that Greg is wanting to put on some world title matches on the card, so I would imagine whoever champion is come August will be there.
Yeah. Now, who would you rather face? Because last year at the Fan Fest, the Sheik gave you a nasty bump on the back of the head, and Colt Cabana's the guy who beat you for the title. So I could see you wanting to, get revenge on him. Who would you choose as your opponent if you could?
Well, assuming I actually even be able to compete,
right?
As someone who's a big fan outside the ring of Colt Cabana, I've known him since we were both in high school. I relish the opportunity to work with him, and I have since he broke into the business. So if you could give me a choice out of those guys, I'm going to pick Cabana any day of the week.
Mm-hmm. I got a lot of people calling in here. We'll get to them in 1 second. I just wanted to get your thoughts on your match last year with Danielson.
Loved it. Anytime you can work with Bryan Danielson, it's a special opportunity. Obviously, as an in-ring performer, he is top of the class, and from both administrative and wrestler to wrestler perspective, I've had the pleasure of working with Bryan in a variety of ways over the last 4 or 5 years, and appreciated every second of it. He's a true professional's professional.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. We got Gene's on the line.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good, Gene. How are you?
I'm all right. Just got a quick question about the state of the business, the wrestling business today. When you look at the two top dogs, TNA and WWE, Al Snow said on a recent interview that it's become too overly produced, and now Vince McMahon has definitely taken the wrestling out of WWE, and it says he just he's always said it, but now he's just emphasizing the fact that it's just pure entertainment and shying away from the So, what do you think the changes, for over the past, I want to say maybe even 10 years in the business from what it is, from what we remember back in the early 90s and 80s to what it is now?
Well, I mean, it's really night and day. I mean, obviously, I grew up in Chicago, loving to watch the old AWA and then the NWA when it was on TV there. And what hooked me into watching it was the word wrestling. I wanted to watch wrestling, and you're so far removed on the two television products today from actual, one-on-one or two-on-two wrestling that you forget what you're watching. And to me, I don't get any enjoyment out of watching Monday Night Raw or TNA unless I'm tuning in to see one of my friends perform. So, obviously, at my time in Ring of Honor has always been about the wrestling, and we focused on that. And I've always been a big fan of keeping it as simple as possible, putting two guys in the ring with an issue and having them wrestle over it. And I think that's what ultimately sells tickets. And what we see on TV is getting further and further from that. And I think that the younger wrestlers coming up are suffering for that.
Anything else there, Gene?
Yeah, one question before I go. I've always been a big fan of gimmicks, and I always thought that's what initially attracted me to wrestling about 20 years ago. The gimmicks, the larger-than-life characters, and it seems like today, pretty much all the promotions have shied away from that. Everyone's pretty much a carbon copy of everybody else. What do you think a gimmick plays a part in the show itself? I mean, how important it is to have that? I mean, or do you think it's important at all to become a larger-than-life character?
Absolutely. You don't have there's no marketability if there's not a personality to market. And you got to remember, from the first second you walk through the curtain on your way to the ring, you need to be projecting whatever your character and your personality is. And that's what people gravitate to. That's what people associate with, and that's what people are going to latch on to. And if you're going to make any money, that's a necessity. And I think people that are devoid of that, even if they're great wrestlers, end up falling by the wayside because you need to have both sides of the coin to make a quarter. You know what I mean?
Right.
Thanks for calling in, Gene.
All right, thanks.
All right. If you guys call in, turn the show down in the background and try not to make a lot of noise. 954 area code. Who are you?
Hi, I got a question for Adam.
Yep. You have a name?
Yeah, Lou.
Okay. What's your question?
I'm curious, after 2 years of a title case, if and when Adam Pearce is ever going to face the Sheik.
Well, I think, number one, that depends on whether or not I get doctor's clearance to actually wrestle again. And number two, that would be dependent upon a promoter to book the match. I mean, we had that hot interaction last year in Charlotte at the Fan Fest, and then it was never followed up on. And I know that wasn't out of mine or the Sheik's desires. If we had our druthers, we could have ridden that for all it was worth, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of interest outside of me and him. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, and that's something that I would obviously look forward to if I'm able to compete.
Yeah, as someone that was at Fan Fest last year, I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing that match, so hopefully we can have it happen.
Thanks, Luke. All right, let's see. Who else we got? The Golden Diamond. Do you have a question, or?
Oh, I didn't know you'd already flipped me. I'm sorry. I actually did have a question for Adam. I know he's done booking in the past. I was curious, from his perspective, what was the most rewarding part of being a booker?
Well, that's an interesting one, and to be perfectly frank, there's not a whole lot of them. I think being a booker is a real thankless job. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of babysitting that goes along with trying to put creative thoughts down on paper and translate that to action that is going to force people to buy tickets. Giving you probably the most real answer I can, I think the biggest satisfaction you receive as a booker is when an idea or a concept that you can see in your mind and put on paper actually works and leads to the reaction from the audience you intended it to from its outset. And again, naturally you would want that to lead to people to buy tickets and to come see the next chapter or whatever it is. And I've had some real stinkers that I came up with and a couple real good ones that stand out. And one of those is the Kevin Steen, El Generico feud in Ring of Honor that lasted over a year. Of course, that wasn't solely my brainchild. I had some really awesome talents to work with on putting that thing together. But I think it worked out as probably as perfect or as close to perfect as we all wanted it to. So it's real rewarding for all of us.
It was an amazing thing to watch as a spectator, seeing it all come together and just the chase aspect of it as it went along and along. That's what I miss about wrestling. And yes, I love the word wrestling. I kind of have the whole problem with the fact that Vince McMahon has gone away with wrestling.
Right.
I was curious, do you think that any national company will ever be on a strong forefront as a wrestling company and not just an entertainment company?
I think it's difficult to ask the 18 to 34 demographic, especially on the low end of that spectrum, to sacrifice some of the sizzle they're accustomed to seeing on Monday and Friday nights and focus on the steak. I don't know that wrestling as wrestling is exciting enough or is flashy enough to hook kids. Because as I was saying, the kids that are watching wrestling now didn't even see Jim Crockett Promotions or the AWA or any of that old-time wrestling. They have no frame of reference for it. So it's easy to say flip the switch and go back to wrestling as wrestling, but you have to remember that your audience is accustomed to seeing a certain thing, and if you drastically change that overnight, you're going to lose a large chunk of that. Mm-hmm. And that is money. And Vince ain't giving up any money.
Speaking of all those promotions, was there one particular one that really caught your eye when you were a kid that made you want to do this?
I grew up watching the AWA, living in Chicago. So early on, my first wrestling memories are of guys like Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel and young Kurt Hennig and whatnot. And then I vividly remember when I got cable in the early '80s, watching the Crockett TV show on WTBS, and those are the two that I gravitated towards early on. And then obviously when I was a kid, I loved Hulk Hogan too. So, which he was in AWA when I was a kid as well. So I had a familiarity with him before Hulkamania really took off.
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier when you were talking about, you like picked Terry Funk's brain and other guys who were watching your matches at the Fan Fest last year. Is any what were like some of the things they would tell you?
I always get favorable comments from the quote unquote old timers. Mm-hmm. I think, and I've said this to other people, I broke in '95, which I think really was kind of the last dying days of that era before what I call the internet boom. I mean, there was an internet in '95, but not really accessible to everybody. Mm-hmm. I was still trained in the old way by guys that worked for Jerry Lawler in Memphis, by the name of Randy Ritchie and Sonny Rogers, who worked in the AWA. So I feel like that time period, like 92 to 96, is like the last of the independent wrestlers or the wrestlers period that were trained in the old way. And then after that, with ECW and the Attitude Era, things kind of had gotten crazy. But I always get I get favorable comments from the old timers because I think I tend to do things the way they did. Mm-hmm. And of course, familiarity and seeing some of those things that they used to do, I think, kind of warms their heart when wrestling on a large level is so different from what they did.
Mm-hmm. Let's get a couple more callers here. Jason, did you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Pearce. I actually live in Florida, so when the Sheik won the NWA World title, there was a lot of rumors and innuendos going around. Is there any way that you can shed some light on the fact that the Sheik won the NWA heavyweight title in his home promotion against Colt Cabana? There's been talk of massive payouts and all that kind of stuff. Can you shed any light onto that?
Not really. I mean, I wouldn't be privy to that information, even if that type of thing was going on. I'd be really surprised in this day and age, actually, if that was happening. And I'd be really disappointed in a variety of people. So, I don't really have any knowledge to lend credence one way or another, although I personally doubt that happened. I can't see the people involved doing that. At the same time, I mean, how the hell do I know? You never know what's going to go on, but I'd be surprised if that was the case.
Okay, and just one more. That's actually more of an observation for you. I see that you're actually booked for July 8th in Daytona for it looks like Continental Wrestling Federation Super Clash. If you actually get a chance to actually watch either Bruce Santee, the Real Deal Mike Cruz, or the Stimulus Sam Shaw, get a chance to actually watch their matches, because those are the top three prospects coming out of Florida.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate that, and God willing, I feel bad for Continental Wrestling Federation. I've had the bookings for probably 6 or 7 months, and in the middle of that, I hurt my neck, so it's kind of up in the air. Of course, I haven't taken it off my calendar because I'd like to be able to fulfill the obligation. So God willing, I will be there. In what capacity, I'm not quite sure at this point. That all depends on doctors, but I will keep my eyes open. I appreciate the tip.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Take care.
Jason.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Joel Gomez calling in here from Portugal. Joel?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh,
was that your question?
No. Well, that was my first question. My second question was to Adam. You used to work for what is now the NWA, the single federation called the National Wrestling Alliance, which, has a lineage from the old NWA. Being that you are a old school wrestling fan besides being a wrestler, how would you compare the current situation of the NWA when in comparison to the NWA that you used to watch and love, I would assume?
Well, that's easy. I mean, there is no comparison. I've said this a bunch of times in interviews. I mean, the governing body, the LLC of the National Wrestling Alliance, and the organization itself is the same as it always has been. Same bylaws, same way of doing business, same board of directors concept and structure. The problem, and I guess if you look at it that way, is since Jim Crockett left, there hasn't been the money nor the exposure for the brand that existed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And on top of that, with the business changing as much as it is, I think some of the ways that the NWA does business is tad outdated and probably could use an overhaul. But that's for the members and the owners of the organization to take up and deal with. Just kind of being a performer and seeing how things work from the inside, I don't think there's really a whole lot of difference in how they do business. As I said, outside of the fact that they don't have enough money or exposure to do the kind of business that I think they'd like to do. So from a business standpoint, much like anything in this down economy, and since Jim Crockett pulled out, I mean, it's night and day, and I don't think anybody would argue that.
My third question, Jack, would be, you are obviously a technical wrestler. You are a wrestler that bends itself more in technical wrestling. Is there a certain wrestling style that, because some wrestlers don't like the high flying, other wrestlers don't like the garbage wrestling, is there some wrestling style that you dislike? And I'm one of these guys. I'm pretty liberal actually when it comes to styles. I think that you can make a case for practically anything you want to do in the ring. One thing I don't like is I think it's becoming much too easy now for us to see man-on-woman violence. I'm not a fan of that in wrestling. I'm not a fan of that in life, period. I think it's in poor taste anytime a man ends up hitting a woman. I think it sends the wrong message predominantly to that 18 to 34 demographic that's watching it. We don't want our youths or our young adults thinking it's okay to clothesline their old lady. Beyond that, I've been in some pretty hardcore brawls, but I've never seen the appeal or understood the use of glass and some of these ridiculous things like light tubes and whatnot. I don't really understand that either, see why you need to go to those extremes, especially when people tend to want to push the envelope. And, I mean, what comes next? You're fighting with lawnmowers and things like that. So, I mean, if I was going to single out two things, it'd be those things. Other than that, I think pretty much everything's been done in wrestling, and I think if you're creative enough, you can tell a story with far less props, but at the same time, sometimes you need to get a little hardcore. Cage matches can be pretty crazy too.
When you said man-on-woman violence, do you mean like when they just beat up women, or like actual like intergender matches where they? I see that happens quite a bit too, where it's like pretty much presented like the on level playing ground.
Yeah, I think all of the above. I'm just not a fan of any of it. To be real honest, I don't find a whole lot of enjoyment in watching women's wrestling other than looking at the women, which is obviously the point of putting it on TV.
Uh-huh.
But going beyond that, I don't think there's any purpose for mixing the men and women in the ring, just for a variety of reasons. I don't think it sends the right message, and maybe that's the old soul in me coming out, but there's no reason for women to be bumped around by men, period. I don't see a point.
I actually agree with you 100%. And I also agree with you about the women's wrestling, which I've been called sexist many times on the show.
Well, then we're both sexist, because I'm tuned in to watch wrestling, and don't get me wrong, I love women. If I have any vice in this world, it's women. But I'd rather look at a women in pretty dresses as opposed to all sweaty and getting their asses kicked.
Right. Just the ring entrances, and then that's all you need, really.
Yeah.
All right, Joel, thanks for calling in. Intern, do you have another question from the board?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the original one, but the blue guy from our message board, he wants to know, is it true that you're originally supposed to be the mouthpiece for the Natural Born Thrillers in WCW?
That is the rumor. And I have it on. Well, I mean, you never say 100%, but from the people I've talked to, it's a pretty safe bet that had I signed that contract, I would have probably been in that spot or something very similar. Yeah.
Were you in the power plant?
I was there on 2 occasions. All thanks to that to go to Terry Taylor, who I have a huge amount of respect for and has really done right by me over the years. Once in early '99 and once in early 2000, I was there, and I'm not ashamed to say that I didn't accept the offers at those 2 junctures in my life. I wasn't really ready the first time around, and the second time was just a bad time for WCW. It was right before it was bought by WWE. So, and I've been on record saying if I could go back and redo one thing over my 15 and a half years in wrestling, I probably would have taken that first developmental.
Yeah. Who was like the trainer at the time?
Paul Orndorff and Buddy Lee Parker were there.
Oh, cool.
Overseen by J.J. Dillon, and Dusty Rhodes was still down there, and had a lot of interaction with all those guys.
What was the Sarge like? We had him on the show not too long ago.
I thought Sarge was great. I thought he was absolutely great. I mean, when it was time to work, he put everybody to work. And I don't have any of those really bad horror stories that you hear of people having at the power plant. I had 2 extremely favorable experiences down there. Again, I was down there. I was brought down there by WCW, so it wasn't like I was one of these guys that paid off the street. And I can definitely tell you from experience being there that if you were brought in by the company, you were treated vastly different than you were if you had paid your money and came off the street. Whether anybody wants to admit that or not, I was there. I saw it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just got to ask you this, too. It's kind of a serious question, but did you ever find a date for Todd Sinclair?
You know what? The sad part about that is, and I know Todd's listening at home because I texted him right before we got on the air, and as I said last year at FanFest, probably one of the saddest things in my lifetime has been the fact that neither myself nor Bryan Danielson nor seemingly anyone on planet Earth is able to find companionship for Todd Sinclair, one of the most giving and loving people that I've ever met in my life. Really has an open heart and wants to share that with people. And it really, honestly, truly, and this is not hyperbole in any way, it brings huge tears, alligator tears, crocodile tears, if you will, to my eyes. The fact that Todd's alone, sitting alone in his home in the Northeast, and probably crying now as we speak.
Oh, man. That brought up some bad memories here for Todd Sinclair.
Yeah. I think we need to get Chuck Woolery on this case.
Chuck Woolery could do it. I mean, anybody. Please, win a date with Todd Sinclair at gmail.com. I'm sure that the email address is still valid. Women, men, you don't know what you are, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It really doesn't matter at this point. Todd needs someone to hold his hand, and I think we should be able to do that for him.
Yeah. Well, still hope for my brother. He's still in the contest. So.
Tremendous.
All right. Again, that's NWALegends.com. The NWA Wrestling Legends Fan Fest, August 4th through the 7th. They just announced he's probably my all-time favorite wrestler. He was the only wrestler I had a poster on my wall. Roddy Piper is going to be there. I'm really looking forward to that. There's a bunch of matches. Is there ever anybody at the Fan Fest that, like, you yourself, like, it kind of brings you back as being a fan? Like, man, you know, I've never met this guy. Somebody I really like to meet.
Yeah, man. I mean, just as a fan, I mean, I'm a wrestling fan before everything else. I mean, I wouldn't have got into the industry without absolutely loving it. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I really like Greg Price's Fan Fest is because he's bringing together a group of people who I grew up admiring. And Roddy Piper is a perfect example. I've been fortunate enough to meet him on a couple of occasions, but I'd love to be able to sit down and pick the brain of the hot rod a little bit and just kind of see what makes him tick. And thankfully, I might get that opportunity this year, so that's good. And I think, obviously, it's one of the most favorable things about the Fan Fest is I don't think there's another convention in the country that is consistently bringing in these kind of people the way that Greg Price does. Of course, I've been a part of Wrestle Reunion as well, which is a similar thing out here the last couple of years in Los Angeles. But such an intimate and close-up feel for Greg Price's Fan Fest, and I don't know anybody that hasn't been satisfied or had a blast. And I fully expect this year will be the same.
Mm-hmm. This will be our 6th in a row, I believe. Is that right, Incher?
Yeah, I think that's it.
So Tully Blanchard, of course, they just announced him, and Baby Doll, Greg Dermot Valentine, Ole Anderson. A lot of people have opinions on Ole Anderson, but every year he's there in the lobby, talking to fans for hours. He's actually a really nice guy.
Yeah, that's the beauty of these Fan Fests. They put you up close and personal with your idols and the people, like I said, that you've grown up admiring and watched on TV and never thought you'd get the chance to meet. And for 3 or 4 days, it's right there in your face. And like I said, I don't know anybody that does any better than Greg Price.
Mm-hmm. Good times. And I want to mention this guy because he's going to be wrestling on the card that hopefully you'll be on. Actually, Mike Jackson, who always gets such a huge ovation from everybody, especially the first time we get to see him, and people weren't really expecting what the guy could do. Have you ever had a chance to work with him?
I've never worked with Mike. I think he's an excellent wrestler, obviously, and a hell of a guy, and I've been very fortunate to be on a number of cards with him over the last couple of years. I think he's amazing. Mm-hmm. And testament to the fact that you're really only as old as you feel, and age is only a number, and Mike can go out there and mix it up with anybody, and does every year. And as you said, tears the house down. I mean, when you don't, I think the fans that show up, even the people that have seen Mike a number of times, especially at Fan Fest, they don't expect what they're about to see, and when they see it, they're blown away. And that happened to me the first time too. Because here you are, who's this guy who's old enough to be your father, and he's in there doing things that people half his age can't do, and it's really it's something you admire. It's inspiring. Mm-hmm. At a certain level. I mean, I don't know if I'll be wrestling when I'm in my 50s, but if I am, I hope I'm doing it like Mike Jackson.
Yeah, it's just it's awesome to see. And I liked it this last year because the 2 years before I thought they built it up well where the people that have gone so many times, they know the moves he's going to do, and then this last year they actually had the guy kind of cut off his moves, so got a lot of heat.
Right.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a way to tell a story in the ring, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask, too, because a friend of the show, the Maestro, the Stro, I read recently you had quite a match with him. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of probably the longest matches probably for the last 6 months that I had. Me and Maestro went 45 minutes in West Virginia, and it was such a great time because, again, here's somebody for probably a generation before me, or probably a generation before me when I broke in, but one of these guys that was definitely trained in the very similar way that I was, and we went out there for 45 minutes and let it rip, and in the first time we'd ever wrestled against each other, and I loved every second of it. I would, if I could wrestle him every day and have that kind of match, I would do it in a heartbeat, and actually had some dates on the table to go back to West Virginia before I hurt my neck, and obviously that's kind of put everything on hold. But I know that once I get clearance, one of the first phone calls I'm going to make is to West Virginia to get back in there and mix it up with the Stro again, for sure.
Now, what's West Virginia like? That's where Incher's from.
I thought it was beautiful. I was surprised the first time I went there because I grew up in Chicago and I live in San Diego, so we're talking there's two vastly different cities to begin with, but I'd always heard that West Virginia was kind of like backwoods and, deliverance type, and I'm sure there's some of that exists there, but I didn't really see any of it. I thought the people were extremely friendly, and I'm a big fan of woods and woodsy areas, I guess you could say, so I thought it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. No, Incher's proud now.
I'm a happy man.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a lot better answer than Rory Annabelle gave us.
Nice.
All right. Thank you for coming on tonight. It's been a good time.
You got it, brother. Anytime.
Excellent. And again, we'll have all the information right on the website, NWA Wrestling Legends Fan Fest. We talk about it all year long. August 4th to the 7th, NWALegends.com. You can meet Incher and myself, too, but I'm sure no one cares about that. But it's always a great time.
And I will see you guys there.
Excellent.
All right, what kind of a promo do you want?
Just tell people to tune in to InYourHeadline.com. Anything that pops into mind.
Anything that pops into my mind.
Right. You can trash us. You can bury us.
In your head. All right. 1 inch and
Jack and Barbie.
Jack. Yeah. All right, all you wrestling fans out there, tune in to Jack and the 1 inch. Let me start this thing again. Can I do this over again?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
Do it all at
You
once?
can.
Are we on the air right now? Are we on the air?
Yeah, we're on the air, but we'll just.
We're on the air. Well, I'm starting again anyhow for all of you nuts out there. Hey, all you perverts, punks, idiots, and fools, tune in to this radio station. What the hell are we promoting now?
InYourHeadOnline.com.
Oh, in your head, right?
Right.
InYourHead.com, right?
InYourHeadOnline.com.
InYourHeadOnline. I'm going to get it right this time. Hey, you've got the funker here, all you idiots, fools, and perverts. Tune in to InYourHead.com. How was that? That wasn't too good.
That was all right.
Awesome.
It's InYourHeadOnline.com. Someone already owns In Your Head.
InYourHeadOnline.com.
Right.
All right, let me try that again.
All
right, here we go one more time. InYourHeadOnline.com with the 1-incher and Jack. All you idiots, punks, perverts, and fools, be sure and tune in and listen to this show. Damn, that was a hell of a promo.
That was great. And
that was much better than Dusty Rhodes could ever dream of doing.
And you covered all our fans.
Badass.
You knew our fan base perfect.
Well, I bet I did.